Alright, welcome back to Nick Lenz's Comic Corner, Classic Us Known Classics. This is episode number 34, 96, and Doubleshot number 3390. Well, we have two really very interesting trades to discuss here from IDW. First up we have is Star Trek Lore War. This contains the Lore War one-shot, along with the final two issues of Star Trek Defiant, which is issues 26-27, along with the final two issues of Star Trek Volume 2 by IDW 31-32, along with the Stark's Worst Day. So, your writers, Christopher Cantwell, Colin Kelly, Jackson Lasing. Ryan North does the Stark's Best Day one-shot. So, in this event, Lore has altered the timeline. Yes, Lore has gone back in time to events of First Contact and basically proclaimed himself a god and pretty much wiped out Starfleet, with the exception of one guy member, actually two people member. One is Kalis, the other is a series of Vulcan, and the Vulcans themselves are pretty much basically all assimilated by the Borg. Yes, the frickin' Borg, which he was part of back in 2. Sisko has got long hair and a full beard, and Worf is referred to as High Admiral, and let's see, Beverly has got short hair, and she is leading some resistance group. Surprisingly, the Orion, who is part of the Defiant series, she doesn't do a lot per se, but a lot of we do see what she's up to, along with Miles, Geordi, and Scotty. Defiant is apparently part of this other thing that actually alters the ship look completely different. And Worf is basically in charge of version of the Enterprise. I think it's like LSS. That's the initials. You're thinking, what the heck does that stand for? Lore Spaceship. Yes, Lore is now a god. And Data is being treated like he's a child, learning how to multiply 2 plus 2. So it is, of all people, the guy turned the character turned villain in the Day of Blood story, Kalis II. Basically, he's the one who uses the Sword of Kalis, a sword that nearly drove Worf and Jadzia insane holding this damn sword. And this Kalis basically has no problem holding it, and he, well, has Sisko bump with it, and Sisko remembers, oh, he gets his memory back. So then he goes back to his room. I think he's got a roommate here who is not Jennifer. I don't think they implied the fact that somebody's gay. He just basically is living with somebody. So then he proceeds to, like, meet me at the docks in this afternoon. Why? I'm going to go now. I have to take care of something. And the thing is, what he takes care of is a shave his head bald and trims his beard down to the awesome goatee, basically. According to what I've heard about Avery Brooks, this look with the bald head and the goatee, this is his preferred look. He prefers that with having a full head of hair. And you're probably thinking, what took Paramount so long to allow him to be like this? Well, apparently, from what I've heard, as the Breed had found research about this, so, because apparently Avery Brooks, where he's bald, apparently is very, very too scary from the Paramount executive, so they basically requested him to grow his hair back. He did, and then by the end of season 3 for the show, he started growing his goatee toward the end of it, and then started season 4, fully bald. Yep. And then he finds Beverly, gets kind of memories back, kind of. Alexander gets memories back next, which is kind of surprising, Alexander. And then of course, I find Tom Paris, obviously. Now, where is B'Elanna, you might ask? Well, it is shown that the Orion is basically, the Orion girl, is apparently in charge of 4 engineers who apparently all been displayed like having the bodies like they're crucified, having their brains move with their freaking heads, and also having the front of their outfits ripped open with a tube there. And it's basically the 4 chief engineers from all 4 Star Trek shows. We have Scotty, Geordi, Miles O'Brien, and B'Elanna. Yep, they've all like, their minds have basically been synced up with all the quadrants. Scotty is basically for the Alpha Quadrant. I think Geordi is the Beta Quadrant. I think in the case of Miles O'Brien, it was the Gamma Quadrant, and B'Elanna, I believe, was Delta Quadrant. Of course, that is a really cool nod in the case of those two, because Miles O'Brien's been the Gamma Quadrant, and of course, B'Elanna's Delta Quadrant. Eventually, of course, they are eventually woken up after, of course, they start freeing everybody, and B'Elanna is woken up, and I'm like, girl, how are you basically able to smile with your brain being removed from your freaking head? Yeah, and eventually, of course, Data reveals, oh yeah, the whole thing may act like a child, lie. So he basically proceeds to take down his own brother, and for all this, and of course, they also find Chancellor Martok in this story. Yes, he basically shows up here too. And then, of course, the timeline is restored. So then, apparently, we have to lead into Star Trek Nemesis. Yes, so in the case of Cisco himself, well, he says goodbye with the timeline restored and everybody back normal. Geordi, of course, who barely played a role in these things, he's off back, probably back to the Enterprise E. So here's what happens to all the characters. Also, Hugh, not knowing what happened to him, he probably went back to what he was doing before. So Lori's taken to the instruments too. Cisco, of course, says goodbye to his wife and 2 children, and then he goes back to the Bajoran wormhole. Yep, he goes back there, voluntarily this time, not by force. Tom B'Elanna basically just hang out together, no problem. By the way, there's also a Dr. Bashir in the story where he gets killed by Starks, who basically goes on one shot where his mind is screwed over by Lore. He doesn't do anything after this. I think he was a character who debuted in Lower Decks, and they probably threw him in the book because why not? Scotty reunites with Uhura, which makes sense. The fact that she would be here alive, because this could be the writers do a small nod to the Lost Era novels, where Uhura is in charge of Starfleet intelligence, and I read in the book that apparently a young Cisco was one of her agents, which that's interesting. So I thought it was really cool to get a chance to reunite with these two. Of course, in the previous crossover, Scotty reunited with Spock. So like, okay, so he reunites first with Spock, and then Uhura. You're thinking, okay, what about the rest of the series cast? Like, Kirk at this point is still gone, so Kirk is in the question. So I tend to think question okay, so where's Chekhov? Where's McCoy? Because there's no evidence that he's dead. Nothing at all. There's no Sulu, Chekhov, Dr. McCoy. They're not here for some reason. They never appeared in these books. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I'm not sure why he didn't interact with them. I'm sure if I could tell, Dr. McCoy is still very much alive. They never confirmed he died at all. I think in one of the novels, they confirmed he died of a heart attack, and when he was like 140, I think it was. But they never confirmed in the series he's dead. No confirmation about that. As for Chekhov and Sulu, no reason why they weren't here. And no appearance by Janice Reed, or even Christine Chapel if she's still alive. Yeah, no mention of them. By the way, there is also a Starfleet officer who is a Tellarite. Well, a Talaxian. Yeah, basically the same species as Dr. Phlox from Enterprise. Nice we have their species appear in this era, because they only appear in Enterprise. They never appear in any place else, I remember. So okay, so Beverly is preparing for the wedding of Riker and Choi. We can see her in the outfit she wears in the movie, and she's thinking, and you see a mirror behind her, way she look in the alternate timeline. Data, of course, is probably back to the Enterprise. The Theseus, no explanation what happened to that ship. The Defiant was later stolen once again by the Orion woman. I can't forget her name. By the way, Sato and the Namek woman, no confirmation of exactly what happened with them. They just time was restored and everything is like okay now. Yeah, because in the previous set of trades, I think it was in Star Trek, where it was shown in one panel these two were having sex in one of their quarters. I'm like, okay, so we have sort of a lesbian couple, and then nothing is confirmed what happened to them afterwards. Nothing. In the case of Kalis, his honor is restored, and he's ordered by Martok to sit in the throne and do nothing. And you're going to like it, be a symbol. So basically, in the case of Martok, he's very reluctant to restore his honor, given the fact basically what happened in the Day of Blood crossover. But what happened with Worf, the star of the Defiant series? Well, at first, basically, you have Jellicoe and Nartuo. Basically, despite the fact that all the stuff he's done, he's requested to be reinstated. They're like, no, we're not going to do that. And then Picard comes in. Yes, Picard, who has not appeared in any of these books since the start of the Star Trek books, since the Star Trek issue 1. Where, in that book, of course, like in the start of that book, he's still wearing his outfit he debuted in First Contact, where he recites a lot of regulations. The fact that basically what these two are doing are actually against Starfleet code and regulations, and also the president like have a war with these two, and of course Worf was restored, no problem. And B'Elanna was restored, though in the case of, I think it was Rolaren, she does not receive a full pardon because the Maquis stuff. Also, for some reason, the Maquis in the old time are basically the Borg. I don't understand that. And of course, she is sort of let go. As for what happens to her, not really very clear. Worf, of course, well, I know exactly where he's going. He's going back to Enterprise E. Yep, that's what he's doing. He's going back to Enterprise E. They do mention in one of the early Defiant books that he was still referred to as ambassador, despite the fact at this point he was not ambassador. Yeah, as for what happened, now in the case, I think it was with Alexander was made Kalis' advisor. Okay, nice little wrap up there. I think it was in the novels, I think it was in the Time 2 novels, where Worf, after the Federation of the Kronos for a few years, he was getting bored and decided to resign and offer his son the position as ambassador, which that did play a role quite a while in the books. Worf met this young woman, I think it was in this really good trilogy of books, who ended up basically being attracted to Alexander. Where he thought basically she was into him. Oh no, she was into his son. I'm like, okay. So I'm thinking like... So I'm thinking like, with that basically that, ooh, maybe Worf in the original, in that novel books, maybe he could potentially be a grandpa. But that wouldn't happen because the books later since ended. That's how it books. But in the case of this, because now we're in the final thoughts territory for Star Trek Volume 2 and Star Trek Defiant. This, by far, this era for Star Trek comics was amazing. Yeah, I didn't find anything wrong with this. Not at all. Did I have a problem with the fact two of the characters were made into a lesbian couple? Not really, no. Now, in the case of Sato, who is a descendant of Hoshi Sato, of course they brought it up in the timeline, so do I have a problem with the fact that an Andorian is a lesbian here who is basically just having sex with a human woman? I do not have a problem with this at all. Here's the thing. This actually was a concept introduced, I believe, in one of the early novels where the Andorians have 4 genders, and basically we have certain Andorians sharing a 4-way relationship where they could be gay or straight. For them, it doesn't really matter. So for me seeing this, now as for how in the world the Sato bloodline got mixed with Andorians, I'm not sure. It could be somebody who Hoshi met during the 20th century, who knows. But I do not have a problem with this at all. Do I have a problem with Native American being lesbian? Because it's original, I have no problem with it at all. Not really. Laura being here was a really interesting idea. Did I think it would spill into this event? Not really, no. I did fall a little behind on the reading of these books. After a while, after about 2 years in both these books, I kind of fell behind, but thanks to the graphic novels I'm reviewing here, I'm able to basically finish reading this whole thing because these books are amazing. Like, I think it was Colin Kelly told him basically that he didn't want to worry about the continuity of the novels. He just wanted to have fun telling really cool Star Trek stories. And that's literally what these are. As for why in the world they had to end, I'm guessing because they ran out of... I'm guessing at this, they must have ran out of... I don't think it was contract per sale, and I do not think it was low sales. I highly doubt that. In the case of this, I'm sure it was probably selling pretty well for IDW, because IDW has had the Star Trek license now for a long time. So, I'm sure for them, this is probably one of the more stronger books put out aside from the TMNT books. That's my guess. But as of currently, I haven't seen any books published by them for Star. It's been a while since I've read any new IDW books. I mean, these books came out like this past April. It came out like a year ago. So, I'm happy I can finally caught up with this. But as for if, in fact, they could do more of this, I'd be happy with it. One thing I would really love to see for IDW to do, because Marvel's done this, and it seems like when it comes to novels, they're just doing stuff related to Discovery or whatever. My idea for Star Trek is to see if they could adapt the novels into comic form, because as far as I think they've adapted maybe one that I know of, and that was the comic book I reviewed recently. I think that may have been the only one. Star Wars has done it several times over the years, but Star Trek has never actually really done that before that I could think of. But Book of Ra was really good. I gave it 10 out of 10. Okay, I'm going to be right back. Excuse me. Okay. Sorry about that. Alright, so next up is another really good miniseries. I first heard about this one, I'm like, oh, this is such a cool idea that they would do this. And this is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles X Naruto. This, I first heard about this when I first heard about the series to be announced. I'm like, this is a fantastic idea. I love this idea. There's a small problem with this picture here. You think, oh, the Turtles go to the Hidden Leaf Village. They don't. They do not go to Hidden Leaf Village at all. Yeah, that part is a big fat lie. Because they do something different here, per se. By the way, the writer of this book is Cabe Goner, art by Henry Priscilla. So, this is 4 issues. You have Jorge Jimenez doing the cover work here. I was kind of surprised this was 4 issues. I would have thought that the story of its magnitude, because this is the first time you have an American comic book crossover with a Japanese manga like Naruto. And they do it in 4 issues. I would have thought this should have been longer than that. But no, it's 4. So basically, get this. So, by the way, April O'Neil, this book is black. Yes, for some unknown reason, April O'Neil is black in this book. Like, I saw this woman, I'm like, orange hair, yellow suit. Kind of might be April, but I'm like, why is April black? Yes, it is based upon a misconception on April and you look in the Mirage covers, which is the big color. Because there is a very, very popular misconception when it comes to April O'Neil. Because the creator has since pointed out, though, about this, because people assume when they first saw April into the covers that she must be black. Despite the fact that when she's always been depicted, she's depicted as white. But, according to the creators, nope, not the case. Despite the fact people have probably insisted, some people may have insisted on it, that, oh, she was black on the covers. No! I think they imply she was Hispanic, not black. So, of course, we have Kakashi, Naruto, and Sasuke here with what appears to be April, despite the fact you look at this one, that does not look like April. For one thing, April was not that muscular. So, they have to say this is April because, well, now, the thing is, how in the world did Team 7 get to New York is never really explained. So, you have Sakura obviously chastising Naruto for talking to Wild things I can do. And then, of course, get this. So, Sasuke, Kakashi is reborn and basically just summons out of the blue, get this. So, he summons Makeout Tactics, his popular reading material that was written by Jiraiya. So, and then, of course, they mention the whole thing with, there is a reference here to Tsunade, which I do appreciate the artist do a very good job depicting her. Very, very good job with that. And, of course, I remembered, oh yeah, Naruto calls her Granny Tsunade, because that's what he always called her in the series. So April kind of details the whole thing of, like, how the whole thing back is talk, which is interesting that, yeah, and they decided to depict Baxter wrong here. Like the case of April, they depicted Baxter wrong. Because, in this comic, Baxter is white. Yeah, I'm thinking that somebody, whoever edited this book, must have got the wires crossed. Because they made April black, and they made Baxter Stockman white. Despite the fact that April's white and Baxter's black. So, and this whole ooze thing over these monsters. And then Naruto uses the jerky in his body. And of course reference to Orochimaru. Yes, Orochimaru, the main villain for a lot of the series. Yeah, the only time you mention about Orochimaru. Yep. So then, of course, they're interrupted by Alplex and the Foot Ninja. And there's reference to Kurama here, Focus Team 7, and then, of course, then the Foot Ninja is about to attack, and all of a sudden, a kunai. And we see a kunai, a bow staff, a walking stick, and a katana knock a lot of these people, and it turns out they're saved by the Teenage Mutant Turtles and of course, Splinter. And for some weird reason, I have no idea why in the world the artists had the idea to do this, they're all wearing masks. I'm like, did the artists... This is something really weird. So, I'm glad Naruto's picked it correctly, but why the heck is Turtles picked it so inaccurately here? Like, why are they wearing armor for? Because this is just so weird. And wearing these masks is just so dumb. And then, of course, basically, April tries to explain. So, explain. Arguably play out. And then, of course, you have Leonardo take on Sasuke. Really interesting that is. Then we have Sakura take on Raphael. Which, yeah, it's so funny. Her punching stuff because she's being tapered by Tsunade. You're probably thinking, like, the whole thing with Tsunade training her, like, with Sasuke being here, like, obviously these two are in the Part 1 outfits, but here's kind of the thing. I think the writer must have got this confused when it comes to Sakura, because Sakura did not become Tsunade's apprentice until after Sasuke left the village. Why in the world they're depicting this here, I have no idea. So, they have Naruto take on Donatello and Michelangelo, and doing Shadow Clone Jutsu, which they call Art Doppelganger, which I'm like, why the heck? Like, okay, I'm glad that the art, like, some things are, but this is wrong. Art of the Doppelganger? Seriously, that is wrong at all levels, because that is not what they call it in the anime. They call it Shadow Clone Jutsu. I'm glad basically Donatello recognizes, oh, it's a clone technique. Yep, that's correct. But having Naruto call it Art of the Doppelganger, I'm like, that is so wrong. Like, yeah. And there's a bunch of other stuff they get wrong here. So, they have Kakashi fighting Splinter. Really good fight here. And, of course, and they're all fighting here now. Then, of course, Naruto hits him with a elbow to the head. And apparently doesn't realize punching him like him that hard. Nope. Oh yeah, and also the fact that all the disappear, and yeah. And then of course basically then apparently then Kakashi brings out the Sharingan, which for some reason they have it depicted as the Maragon Sharingan. I'm like, that's wrong. Like, yeah, he does have the Maragon Sharingan, but he doesn't hide it under. He doesn't look like that in the mask. Yeah, it's like, did they like? I look at this thing. It looks like the mark, like, because there's more than one dot here. So then, of course, oh yeah, and also the fact they're all wearing ninja headbands, which I'm guessing the reason why they had them wear those, the symbols in their heads, is because the whole crossover with Naruto. Also, I do appreciate the fact that artistically wise, they do get the symbol right and they got the outfits correct. Yeah. And of course, thinks he's Matayoshi, which as a nod to the, I think it was the 87 continuity, which Matayoshi did become Splinter. Here it's like, yeah, they know each other because apparently Kashi knew Matayoshi, except that this is Splinter. Not, yeah. So, and of course they use themselves. And then they're brought to the base. Now the base itself, I'm fine with having the whole big door thing. That's kind of weird. Alplex Fallen was kind of, now, as for the entrance being a Central Park, that's kind of weird. Because normally put how it gets their base, they get there via a manhole, not some big huge door. Oh yeah, now they take out the headband. Yes, and then, well, then of course they drop down some elevator, and they show up the cool base. Now, as for the symbol they have here, for what appears to be the clan, possibly the symbol for the clan, the Mato clan. That's a completely original for this book because they never print any Charles book part of the one. And then we have Naruto playing what appears to be, I kid you not, he's playing NES because he's never seen it before. And then we see meditation where we have Kakashi, Splinter, Sasuke, Leonardo, and then we have Naruto, seeing the T, and then of course we see Donatello and Sakura punching bags. Then we see Naruto skateboarding, which that's interesting. And of course, basically, we do see a brief cameo here by the rest of the cast. We have this one panel seeing Hinata, the woman who ends up marrying Naruto years later and having 2 kids with him, Ino, Sai, and Shoji. Shikamaru. Nice to see Team 8 there. Team 7 there. Oh, Team 10. Yeah, nice to see him there. So yeah, then they mention about, now here's the thing, of course they have the armor thing, which, and for some reason, like, I look at this guy like, yeah, and here's something really weird though. They have the Turtles openly refer to Shredder by his real name, despite the fact that's frickin' Shredder. And of course, basically, I have Kurama talking to Naruto, which is interesting because these two, if you haven't watched the original series, these two, very rare. They can talk to each other, not much. Epic on the creation of the and put on the arm once again, just cause. And then of course I put the foot ninja. Then of course they And then, of course, everyone goes. Basically, the Turtles and Team 7 go out to explore the city, which this is wrong on all levels, how this New York City looks here. Like, I get the fact, yes, they're trying to squeeze in New York City into the world of Naruto, but having Lady Liberty look like this is completely wrong on all levels, because anybody who was a... Also, that being that close, that's so wrong. I get the fact it's a ninja version of the city, but yeah, I'm like, couldn't they just depict it in the actual New York City instead of making up their own version of New York City like this? And also having Lady Liberty holding up a kunai instead of like a torch. And they go get some pizza. They've never had pizza before. Then we have Splinter and April O'Neil at the Foot Clan Castle, which up skyscraper. Okay, now this I have no problem with, because in case you wonder, like, what version of the Foot Clan of Turtles had this as their base? The 2003 show. Couldn't remember that. It's good enough that show. Oh yeah, and the scroll they were carrying contained news. Okay, interesting. And then, of course, basically, like, you would think, like, with this book here, that they would, because they have all this turtle stuff, and of course you have, there was Sake, despite the fact that any turtle continuity, they always refer to him as Shredder. No, yeah, they always do. And of course, then we have some mutations here, some fighting here. We have some Chidori's by, of course, Kakashi. I don't see Sasuke doing it. Of course, you have Leonardo working alongside. I think it's like not. Actually, it's Leonardo and a little bit of like, yeah, it's just Leonardo working alongside Kashi. Yeah, and then we have Sasuke doing his own Sharingan too, and he's working with Donatello. And then Naruto takes his kunai, beats up some foot ninja monsters, work with Michelangelo, because they get along perfectly fine. I don't mind them interacting very much, because their personality is very similar, so it makes sense. And then Shredder becomes Super Shredder, which that's a really cool thing. Yeah, and of course, Power of the Shredder, or should I say Super Shredder. And they have a fight in the... I think this is the final issue of the book. Yeah. They have a fight with him, and of course Naruto does the chakra cloak. Yes, this is the Nine Tail cloak. Which, he never did this until he fought Sasuke in Final Valley. I'm like... Yeah, and then of course you have them doing with the ninjas, which is really weird. And... So, of course, they take him down, and then use the Sharingan, which is orange, despite the fact you don't pick as blue. And then they beat them. Oh, yeah, and also the fact that Alplex is part of them. Yeah, Alplex joins them for reasons. And then the book ends with all of them having pizza. Okay. I do like the occasional nods to Naruto continuity. But what continuity is this? This is clearly set in alternate continuity, because Sasuke is now at the village, and he is not know Chidori, despite the fact that he should know Chidori. Sakura being apprentice, they don't say it here, but her being apprentice to Tsunade. I appreciate the nod. Yeah, I appreciate the nod, but I kind of wish they would have, like, I do appreciate the fact that the Naruto cast is depicted correctly, like their artistic is done correctly, though in the case of Kashi it was a little error with the eye. And it's like, based upon the cover, it's like, this should have been set in Henley Village, not in New York City. Well, an alternate version of New York City where it's ninja based. Yeah. That was another problem I had with it, was that you have such somebody like in the middle of the city, despite the fact you told nobody surrounded by water. Heck, even the Batman movies had their version of such somebody always on an island. Why it was middle of the city, I don't know. It was one of the most weirdest things. They say this is New York, and I'm looking like, no, it's not. This is basically a ninja version of New York. So, and you cannot say they walk there. No. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. You can't say they walk there, so it is quite interesting of this book. I did like the concept of this book. It just, the story itself was fine. I had no problem with the story. It just the problems I had with it were artistic errors with turtles. Story wise was done perfectly. I love the story when it comes to that, but overall, great story. The story is good. Artwork is in good places, but it's like it could have been better, but they just had to turn New York City into a ninja city for some reason. I'm not sure why. It's weird, but that's book in a nutshell. Okay, so that's pretty much a particular video. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications. Next up, there was something wrong with the Wi-Fi for some weird reason. Not sure why. This epic wasn't raining today. So I will see you all in a bit. My next video, when I get a chance to do, will be the newest episode of One Piece. Okay, see you. Bye.